Hello, and welcome to the Core Dog Experience, where I talk Ohio State Buckeyes, talking Buckeyes from the fans' point of view. So, if you liking this segment, please hit that like button, and if you enjoy Buckeye content in general, please subscribe. Help a brother grow this thing out. So, with that said, let's just get into it. Originally, this was going to be about the goings on to spring practice and how things were developing there, getting ready for the upcoming game at Indiana. But too much has happened since then. Gonna talk about some other stuff. But in a nutshell, McCord's gonna be your quarterback. I've been saying it all along. I haven't seen nothing that's gonna change that, other than him getting injured or just Devin Brown just completely showing out in practice. But I just don't. And I said it from the jump, ever since Stroud announced he was going. I said McCord was going to be your quarterback. And I don't even, and depending on how the game goes, Brown may not get in the game because Notre Dame's week 2. McCord got to get his reps in. But more on that later. We got to talk about all the realignment stuff and all the happenings that are going on around the NCAA football, the conference, and just how things are shaping up. And I told you, if you looked at my last snap reaction when Colorado announced that they are going to the Big 12, I told you, even though Tony was saying, "Nah, we ain't doing that, we ain't." Come on now. As soon as Colorado announced, I told you what was ever going to happen was going to happen quick. I told you it was going to happen quick. And within a few days, despite all what they thrown out to the media, we knew it was going to happen quick, and it did not take long. Oregon and Washington are both heading over to the Big Ten. They're joining SC and UCLA. We knew it was coming. Why all the surprise? We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming. We've been talking about it for years, so you knew it was coming. And when Colorado announced what they're going to do, you knew it was going to be quick. I said, Tony got to be quick. Whatever he's going to do, he's going to do it fast. Despite the smoke screens they putting out in the media, I said, whatever going to happen, it's going to happen quick. And boom, before you know it, Oregon, Washington, off to the Big Ten, and boom, just like that, it happened. And so fans, like I said, so I wanted to peruse around and see what some of the fans' thoughts were, and not all are happy. Not all are happy. They weren't happy when SC and UCLA came aboard, and they still not happy now. Like my man pointed out here, Thomas, he thinks the whole realignment thing is ridiculous. It is what it is. If you like it, don't like it, it is what it is. We knew it was coming. It's not like it's out of the blue. They've been talking about this for years. And it picked up steam once Oklahoma and Texas voted for the SEC. And we're going to talk about that. A little bit more. But it's ridiculous. Yes, it's ridiculous. But it is what it is. It's the way college football has been trending for the past several years now. And again, some folks, they don't care for it. They rather go back to the traditional ways of doing stuff. They want to stay regionalized and stuff, and there was the pros and cons to that. But again, I'm all for tradition. I'm all for remaining stuff and not doing too much radical changes. But in order to do that, all the conferences got to agree to do that. All the conferences got to agree to stick to the tradition, to stick to how things were in the past, and that blew up long time ago. When the money pot got bigger, they say they gonna stick to traditions and do this, that, and the other, but we know when it get down to it, the money talk. You can't get everyone to agree to it. So you can sit there and say you're gonna stick to tradition and do stuff the old way while all the other conferences are moving on. I'm glad Tony moved on. Tony, you got to do what you got to do. Money, greed, whatnot. You got to keep up with the Joneses. the SECs of the world. You guys keep up with them, and I think Kevin Warren made a good move in keeping up with the Joneses, and I think Tony's doing a good move in keeping up with the Joneses. If keeping up, staying, whatever you want to call it, you can't stick there if your foot in the mud while the universe moves on, so to speak. Um, but if everyone ain't going to stick to tradition, then you can't be the one trying to hold on to something that's not worth holding on to. Make new traditions. That's what all of this is about. You're gonna be making new traditions. 15, 20 years from now, we don't know what we'll be talking about. So you gotta make new traditions, and you gotta stay with current and what's going on, and that's part of why the Pac-12 sees themselves in the situation they are in. They did not remain current. They did not see the trends. They did not do what they needed to do to insulate themselves for the stuff that is going on. But we knew it was coming when SC and UCLA joined the conference. It was always talking about getting some travel partners for SC UCLA to reduce some of the travel expenses. Not so much for the football team, but for the other sports programs, which I get to an extent. When people, that's another big thing when people talk about how they're upset with all the stuff. It's not regional no more. It's not stuff. It's not based on geography anymore. The travel, the travel stuff. I think the monies that they'll be getting for it, maybe not in the short term, but in the long run, it's going to make up for whatever additional travel expenses some of these conferences will be experiencing moving forward. I think they weighed the options. It's not like they haven't looked at it. I'm sure they weighed the pros and cons of the travel expenses and all the stuff folks are pointing to, and they went with the latter and say, you know what, in the long run, it's better for us to make this move. So again, folks got to do what they got to do to remain relevant. SC UCLA did it, so they can remain relevant. Oregon and Washington are doing it to remain relevant, and all these moves, Colorado's doing it to remain relevant. They're doing what they got to do to survive in the ever-changing landscape in college football. So, again, a lot of folks aren't happy around the board. Some of the SC fans aren't happy at all that Oregon and Washington are coming. And it's just funny reading some of the comments, because I didn't know some of this. Apparently, one of the reasons why SC left and was joining the Big Ten is they, according to my fan here, the SC, they got tired of trying to recruit against Oregon. Now, I don't know, this might just be one person's take on that. I don't know. But just to throw that out there in the universe, that's why SC hit the transfer portal. Because they were scared of recruiting against Oregon. Now they mad they got to recruit against Oregon again now, because come on now. This person said that they're going to say that SC saved the conference. I know fans be saying some silly stuff, but to say that SC is saving the Big Ten conference, that's about one of the silliest statements I think I've ever heard or read regarding all this realignment stuff. And just to pull up some of the revenue statistics here, just to back up my claim here, that the Big Ten is rolling in money conference wise. As a conference as a whole, I know about the individual schools, but the conference as a whole, the Big Ten is making some bank. Like I say, 845.6 million revenue 2022 fiscal year. They making bank. SC, we might get a little bump up. I mean, we're getting the LA market. Can't argue with that. We're getting expanded to a new LA market with the addition of SC and UCLA. Got the whole West Coast on lock now of Oregon and Washington. So yeah, y'all brought something to the table, but don't get it twisted, y'all. SC did not save the Big Ten. Big Ten was gonna do fine with or without you. Okay, that's just just to put that out there. Big Ten was going to do fine without the addition of SC, So, but I wouldn't put that out there. Y'all mad Oregon's coming. That's one of the reasons y'all mad, because y'all got to recruit now against Oregon. Come on, y'all SC. Y'all shouldn't be scared of recruiting against nobody. I wouldn't. Some stuff is best left unsaid. That could have went left unsaid. Y'all scared of recruiting against Oregon, and that's one of the guarantees that you were given and why you came here, because Oregon was not going to be invited. I doubt very seriously if Kevin Warren said we're not going to invite Oregon. You ain't going to dictate to. You're not going to dictate to who we invite to our conference. You want to come, you welcome, but you ain't going to put no terms on who we can invite in the future. So, okay, just calm down with all that. Calm down with all that. Y'all win, be happy you win, and in the long run, y'all gonna be happy. Y'all win. Recruiting battles or not, you got going on with Oregon. Okay, y'all gonna be happy. You are it. Some of the Oregon fans. Moving on. Some of the Oregon fans. Again, we got fans across the board. Some get it, some don't. Some are happy with it, some aren't. And it was like I said, for the financial future, it's good for them financially moving forward. And again, something we will touch on a little bit later on. The short term, yeah, they took less money to come to the Big Ten, but whatever money they were taking less initially, it was going to be more than what they were getting with any Pac-12 media rights deal that they could never, ever finalize. They got to do what they got to do to secure their future moving forward. I'm sure they looked at all the optics, pros, cons. They feel in the long run, this is going to be the best move for our university, our student athletes, is to move on to a conference that's stable, that's making bank. Yeah, we might take a little bit on the front end, but in the back end, we're going to get our comeuppance. So again, I think they're making a good move based on them. They're after the review, research upon the home thing. They're doing what's good for them. Same thing with the Washington folks. They're doing what's best for them and their program and their student and athletes. Again, not all fans like it. The Pac-12 was a proud conference. Conference of champions. Conference of champions. Yes, y'all deserved better than what's happening to you now. The conference, even if you survive, it's never going to be the Pac-12 as we know it. No matter what you do, there's no one you can bring in, no one you can merge with for the conference to be what it was previously, previous to all the defections. So, and it is sad. It is sad. That's what conference football, college football is coming about in the Pac-12. Couldn't keep up. Could not keep up. Like I said, Big Ten, they keeping up with the Joneses. Big 12 did what they had to do to keep up with the Joneses. Pac-12, not so much. So we will see. And again, a lot of their fans are not happy. Not happy, not sad, but I think a lot of them are going to embrace it, what's coming forward. New teams, new traditions, new rivalries to be built. There's something to build on for all involved. All new rivalries, new matchups we've been wanting to see that we had to wait for bowl season. We don't have to wait for bowl season. We might be able to see this on a regular basis moving forward. And it's going to mean something even more now. So, again, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a change. Anything you have something this drastic, it's going to take some getting used to. All folks aren't going to like it, but it is what it is. I think in the long run, folks will see the benefit of them moving forward. Again, I'm not a fan of it, but I see where it's trending. It is what it is, and I'd rather for the Big Ten to be at the forefront than to suffer the fate the Pac-12 is dealing with right now. So hats off to Kevin Warren for doing what he did, like it or not, and hats off for Tony for doing what he did, like it or not. You got to do it to keep the Big Ten relevant. You got to do it to keep up with the other conferences, and it is what it is. You're gonna lose some, like I said, you're gonna lose some rivalries, but you're gonna get some new ones. You're gonna get some new ones. I mean, Oregon and Ohio State, they got a good thing going. They just split. What Ohio State was last 3 games. Ohio State's 2-1 against them. We won the important ones. Won the Rose Bowl. We got our national championship. And then Oregon came out to Columbus and took us. So we got a nice little thing brewing there. So it's gonna be interesting moving forward on how the new rivalries or whatever spark up as a result of all of this. As a result of this. So I said the Pac-12 is pretty much dead as we know it. There's no bringing back the Pac-12 to its former glory. The Conference of Champions has sunset officially. Period. Get your violin. I don't know. I feel sorry for the Pac-12. I really do. I look forward to the Rose Bowl. But again, that's something that went away when the BCS came around, and some of the changes to the BCS. The Rose Bowl was not your traditional Rose Bowl. You never know who was going to play in the Rose Bowl. It was not always going to be a Big Ten, Pac-12 matchup. It just wasn't going to be, especially when the CFP started. It was not always going to get your traditional Big Ten Pac-12 matchup anyway. So that was already going by the wayside. So again, it's something that was coming already. It's just got here maybe sooner than what some folks would have wanted or expected, but it's always been in the mindset that it was coming. It was coming. It was always been talked about, and it's here now. It's pretty much arrived. So, with the death of a conference, that's basically what it is. The Pac-12 will never be the same. Didn't take long. Folks looking for someone to blame. Who are you going to blame for the demise of the Pac-12? Well, the Pac-12 is dead as we know it, like I just said. And so who are folks looking to blame? People want us to immediately say the Big Ten is to blame. Got this headline here from the CBS Sports site. They're in their headline. I've focused on their headline because they called out the Big Ten and the Big 12 and not, in particular terms. And then anyone else who may want to not take the blame. But he specified here Big Ten and Big 12 for the death of the Pac-12. And I'm like, how are you going? They played a role in it, but who is? You gotta look where it all started, and what started all of this. What started all of this? It wasn't the Big Ten didn't start all of this. Big Ten reacted. Big 12 didn't start all of this. The Big 12 was simply reacting. Who started all of this was the SEC. Now, like I said, CBS, this is a CBS site, CBS, SEC, that's where all the SEC games are played on the CBS. But he don't mention the SEC. I read the article. He don't mention the SEC at all. But the SEC started this when they took Oklahoma and Texas. That's what got all this going sooner rather than later. It wasn't the Big Ten. It wasn't the Big 12. I don't know how you can put the Big 12 in the sentence and not include the SEC, because the Big 12 got to replace their ranks because the SEC came and raided them. But SEC, they ain't in this headline. It should be SEC. SEC, they started all of this. And nowhere in this article was the SEC referred to, and not in terms of killing off the Pac-12. When they got the ball rolling. They got it rolling. What did he think was going to happen? That the Big Ten was going to stand pat and not do anything? Did he think the Big 12 was going to say, oh man, we lost Oklahoma and Texas, we're not going to do anything? They reacted to what the SEC did. You can't pit those two. You cannot omit the SEC from any of this, because they got the ball rolling. They got the ball rolling. Period. SEC started this chain reaction, and you cannot ignore that. With the talks of the college football playoff expanding, teams get paid, and I believe about how many number of teams they get in there, the SEC's like, wouldn't it be great if we got that money from Oklahoma and Texas coming to the SEC rather than that money going to the Big 12? Let's let's make Oklahoma and Texas part of the SEC, and that way that money comes to us. See, it's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the Benjamins. The SEC did not need Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, did they really need Oklahoma and Texas? Really? They could have left they could have left well enough alone, and we'd be sitting here getting ready for another college football season with everything intact. Not to say it wouldn't have happened eventually, but they sped up the process, and to not even refer to the SEC as the downfall of the Pac-12, to me, I think that is very fortuitous, forgetting what really started it all. Not to say Big Ten don't have no blame. Not to say Big 12 had no blame. They could have went a different route. If they were able to get Notre Dame, I believe if they were to get Notre Dame, I believe the Big Ten leaves the Pac-12 alone. But Notre Dame ain't budging. They're not budging, period, unless something drastic happens. And I've talked about what needs to happen for Notre Dame to come off their stance and join in the Big Ten. And it's not going to happen. So Big Ten did the next best thing. And I don't blame them. But they reacted to what the SEC did. So they didn't cause it, they reacted. It may have been the indirect cause of what the SEC did, but the SEC started all of this. So yes, and when the Big Ten went out and got UCLA and USC, yes, that started. I put a big nail. That really hindered what the Pac-12 could do. But the SEC started all of this. So I just got to get that out there. Got to get that out there. You can't have that type of headline and have a sentence with Big 12 in it and not include the SEC, because the Big 12 is doing what they need to do to remain relevant. They lost their two big guns. They had to replace them. And their initial wave, they got some of the smaller schools that come to them that make them a viable conference. So now they went fishing for some bigger stuff, and they were able to get it. So conference-wise, sort of like the Murder on the Orient Express. Everybody had a little hand in it or something like that. The SEC, they got the ball rolling. Big Ten, they took the first jab, and then the Big 12 came in with the four corners. They took the four corners. Arizona started with Colorado, and then soon after, Arizona State, and Utah. So Ken laid the hand of maybe not one person. Yeah, the SEC did what they did, but the Big Ten didn't have to do what they did. True, they didn't have to, but you knew they were. Big 12 didn't have to do what they did, but you knew they were. It was all about the money. You guys keep up with the money race, and the next big thing was the Pac-12. And the Pac-12, ultimately, you got to look at their leadership, because they had an opportunity to get their media rights. This is what all it comes down to. The Pac-12 is not happy. Those schools that are left are not happy with their money. Their commissioner, Larry Scott, previously, and George, I'm not going to even try to butcher his last name. Just call him George K. We got Coach K. Now we got George K. They couldn't get a deal. They could not get a deal. They couldn't get a deal when they had SC and UCLA still in the mix. They still couldn't get a deal. They had a chance a few years ago, someone pointed to poach the Big 12, and but they backed off, said, we don't need it. We good for now. We good. And plus, I don't think Texas was budging anyway, because they had their TV deal. But the big Pac-12, they did not pursue it, and they let it go. And now 10 years later, 10, 11 years later, here we are with them pretty much at death's doorstep. So they had terrible leadership, period. You playing this solely, the conferences had their part in it, but the leadership of the Pac-12 was god awful. And you cannot blame the schools for wanting to get out and do what they need to do to remain relevant in the race. Because it's all about the money. The Pac 12 could not secure money. Even the latest deal was going to be an incentive based thing. Again, bad leadership. So a lot of this lays at the feet of the Pac 12 themselves for not being able to do what they needed to do to remain viable moving forward. Like I said, if you don't stay up with the trend, you're going to get left behind. So say what you want about the Big 10, Big 12, they did what they had to do to remain relevant. Pac 12, I don't know, but maybe they're full of themselves or too ego, I don't know. But they did not do what they needed to do to secure their spot moving forward. And they're in the situation they are now, having to hope the Mountain West throws them a lifeline. I mean, you should have known things were bad when they could not work out a deal to get San Diego State from the Mountain West. San Diego State was like, you know what, dog, that's a pass for me. I'm gonna stay in the Mountain West. When you knew when that happened, yeah, Colorado was like, you know what, we out. We out, and like I said, Deion Sanders is right. It's all about the money now. Follow the money. Follow the money. Sandy, like when that deal with San Diego State fell through, it didn't take Colorado long to say we out. Once Colorado said that, the floodgates opened up, and we're at where we're at right now. Again, that's bad leadership on the Pac-12's half. On behalf of the Pac-12, where you could not secure a deal to get San Diego State into the fold and get you some type of media rights deal that was good for your remaining members. Because there were schools out there to be had to save a remnant of the Pac-12 and keep your two biggest dogs at that point, Oregon and Washington, but they could not make the deal. You know, a lot of teams were being floated out there. San Diego State, SMU, you could have had the Dallas market. UNLV, they suck, but that's a Las Vegas market. There's stuff. They had options. They had options to remain relevant with the new playoff deal coming up, with the new playoff expansion coming up. Oregon and Washington probably would have had a seat at the table. Wouldn't have been making the money, but you could have kept your conference afloat. So it's going to be again. A lot of that lays at the feet of the Pac-12 leadership and their inability to get a deal. So they got a hand in it. They got a hand in their own death, so to speak. So you're gonna add them to the mix. Big 12, SEC started it. Big 10, Big 12 helped out, and the Pac-12, they sort of like they turned the damn knife in their own still because they couldn't get a deal. So we add Pac-12 to the mix while we at it. Their leadership failed them big time. And then again, it's all about the money. All about the money. What spearheaded this to begin with? The money. Oklahoma and Texas going to the SEC for the money. And who's behind the SEC? ESPN. Follow the money. You follow the money. ECPN, like us in Big Ten land like to say, it's the ES, EC. Then you get the little PN. You know, ESPN. ESPN has something to do with Oklahoma and Texas bolting to the SEC. So ESPN, all their folks on there saying, "Oh, how's this going? This is terrible college football." Hell, y'all network was behind it. Y'all network started it all. Don't act like y'all didn't. Be like, huh? All the way. Y'all know exactly what y'all did. ESPN got their fingerprints all over the conferences and what's going on now in terms of realignment. They got their deal with the SEC, and ESPN never got over the fact that the Big Ten went out and got their own network. Yeah, I'm going deep. I'm going deep. You know what I was all about? They still pissed the Big Ten got their own network. Well, it was all about the money. All about the money. So, but it is weird. That's where we're at right now. And talking about the money, it's all about the money, and because of the money, then there were four Power Five is down to Power Four, and I hope it does stay at four. I hope the ACC can work something out. So it's because I just like an even number. Because I don't think the Big 12 is going nowhere. They're not going to be the same revenue that the Big 10 and the SEC are making. But we should. They keep talking about the two mega conferences. I really hope it don't come down to that. I hope the Big 12 can remain relevant. And I think that they got some good programs there. I mean, let's face it, they got blown out. Didn't deserve to be there. But they made the championship game last year. Baylor's a good football program. You got TCU, Texas Tech, and they bring it in Utah. Utah's a good program. Utah's a good program. They got the Utah BYU thing. And I think they did what they needed to do to remain relevant moving forward. The basketball schools are good, and they're good in a lot of the other non-revenue or Olympic sports is what they're being referred to now, and a lot of good in a lot of the Olympic sports programs. So I think the Big 12 is not going anywhere. The ACC, on the other hand, it's going to be interesting to see what they do to remain relevant. I really do hope it stays at four. Four is a good even number. I like even numbers. I never liked the Power Five because one champion was always going to get left out. And speaking of going back to the, just to circle back to some of the Pac-12 talking and how SC saved that. I meant to throw it in there, but I get on tangents, you get to going. But the Pac-12, since the inception, they only had two teams make the playoffs. Oregon the year we blew them out, and then Washington made it one year. Other than that, y'all weren't making the playoffs. So again, I have to just loop that back in there to say you guys, just to say SC didn't make the playoffs. I'll remember SC making the playoffs. If they did, you can correct me in the comments. Just hit me up in the comments about any of this you hearing. And again, hit that like button if you're liking this segment so far. Liking some of the stuff I pointed out. You may have been thinking it too. And again, please subscribe. Help me grow this thing out. Get the word out there about Cord Dog and his thoughts. But it's going to be interesting what the ACC is going to do, because it wasn't that long ago they had six or seven of their own teams grumbling about their media rights deal and the money they were getting, or not getting in this case. They weren't happy, and they're locked into 2036. So it's hard for them to do anything about it. Again, another terrible deal. They're going to be lagging way behind what the Big Ten and the SEC is making. And like I said, 6 or 7 schools, within a couple reports, they went, hey, what are you guys going to do? We gotta change this distribution stream or something, or else we leaving. And it sort of died down some, but one school is still talking loudly, and they ain't backing down from talking loudly. Florida State went out. They went out so bad they willing to pay that ridiculous price to get out. Was it $300 million? They like, we will pay it because in the long run it's going to benefit us in the long run. Back to the short term versus long term. They playing the long game. If the ACC don't come up with something, Florida State might just find a way to get out. And if Florida State get out, now I don't know what the cash cow is for the other schools. They may not have the money to be able to do something like that. But Florida State ain't backing down. Their people are like, it's not a matter of if we going to do it. It's a matter of when we going to do it. Now, I don't know. But that's what they saying. And you ain't being that adamant about getting out of something unless you got some place to go. Y'all hear me, right? They ain't adamant about getting out of something, unless you got some place to go. Now I don't know if that means that them and the Big Ten been talking, because they did apply for an AAU status. I brought that up in my previous snap reaction. They brought it up. They applied for AAU status. It got denied, but they did apply for AAU status, and some folks saying the AAU don't mean anything. It's just a preference, not a requirement, which may be true. Which may be true. I ain't going because they might know more about that than me. But the AAU status is what sets the Big Ten apart from the SEC in terms of academics, in my opinion. In my opinion. So to me, the AAU matters, and I think it would matter to the member institutions that are a part of the AAU, that are part of the Big Ten, that it matters. It may not be a requirement, but it's a very, 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 very important preference, and Florida State doesn't have that status. So I'm just saying. I ain't saying, but I'm just saying. But they are talking loudly about getting out. Unless there's a, not to say they can't apply for it again, because I don't know what the procedures are for the AAU status, but they applied for it, they got denied, and they applied for it, like I said, for one reason. That's what the Big Ten prefers. You be an AAU member. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be interesting how that plays out. But I hope they do stay in the ACC, and I hope we keep four power conferences. It's an even number. It's an even number. It's gonna be interesting. I hope they can work it out. But if they get out, because the rumor was the Big Ten was looking at 4 teams. That was the rumor. And those 4 teams was always Oregon and Cal were always part of the 4. And then you had some folks saying Stanford and Cal. You had other folks saying Florida State and Clemson. I could buy the Stanford Cal part more so than the Florida State Clemson part, just because of the grant of rights stuff. And again, Clemson's not AAU. And then Florida State, they applied but got denied. So the Stanford Cal part's more believable. Travel partners again for the West Coast teams, the reduced travel costs. I think it's not as big of an issue as folks like to make it out to be, but that's more believable. But it was always a rumor of 4 teams. We got 2 of them. That puts us at 18. And 18, that's just a bad number. I don't see the Big Ten staying at 18 teams. So I think there's something to that team. It's the race to 20. First to get to 20. And now, like I said previously, Tony he should go out and get the teams he wants. Don't be reaction. We reacted to Oklahoma, Texas going to SEC. Don't be reaction. You go out and be proactive and get the 2 teams you want. And this is barring that Notre Dame is totally off the table. So I say this with that caveat. Notre Dame is totally off the table, because in the perfect world, we get Notre Dame. But that ain't happening. So as you saw my previous stuff, I had my West Coast scenario, which included Stanford. Not so much Cal, but it included Stanford. And then I had an East Coast scenario where we're just busting up the ACC. We are proactively busting up the ACC. I think that's only territory not explored by the Big Ten yet is the ACC. And we're talking about the North Carolina market, which would be my preference, North Carolina and Virginia. But Florida State, they're the better football brand. But if we were to go to 2 teams out of the ACC, I always preference North Carolina and Virginia. But that's just me. But so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. If it is going to indeed be the 4 teams, it is going to be Stanford and Cal. We'll see. We'll see. Stanford's good. They're good in football every 2 or 3 years. They're really good in football, and then they dominate the Directors' Cup or whatever cup that is. They're really good in all the Olympic non-revenue sports. Stanford is really good in that, so that would bring a lot to the table for the Big Ten. Cal, they got academics. I don't know how serious Cal takes sports, so I don't know if we'll beat Cal. This would be interesting. I know who I would pick if I was going that way. And again, this just core dog being core dog. But I'll go and I get Stanford. Then I'll get Kansas. That's just me. I just get Kansas, and I wouldn't deal with the ACC and fool with the ACC unless they got something. Like I said, Florida wouldn't be this adamant unless they didn't have something promised to them, because they're adamant they went out of the ACC. So it's just going to be interesting how all this works out. And again, when it happens, wherever those next two teams are, because we're not staying at 18. I just don't see. May stay there 1 year or two to get these new teams sort of into the mix and get acclimated. But we're going to 20. There's two more teams coming. Two more dominoes are going to fall, and it's going to be interesting to see which two dominoes those are. So, but that's. And then lastly, with all this expansion, we can't keep the name Big Ten. We can't. It's cute. It's a good brand. You know, it's iconic at this point in time. It's iconic Big Ten, SEC, but the name sort of lost its meaning a long time ago. We're not the Big Ten no more. We're getting ready to go to 20 teams. Mark my word. And one of the fans there in Oregon, they threw this out there. It's just call it the Big Conference. I'm cool with that. We're not the Big Ten no more. We just a Big Conference. Because it may not even stop at 20. I'm capping it at 20. That's Core Dog capping it at 20. But we may go beyond 20 because when this all first started, it was going to be the two mega conferences. So I hope it's the four super conferences, not the two mega. I'm cool with the four super conferences, but if we go to 20 teams, you can't keep calling yourself Big Ten. Nah, we gotta move on from that, Tony. Just drop the 10, like someone. Not my idea, but I like it. Someone said, just go with the big. We the Big Conference. In the vein of the Ohio State University, we'll just be the Big Conference. You know what I'm saying? That works for me. We are the Big Conference. I can go with that. But we gotta drop the Big Ten at some point, cause it was silly when we got to 14, and it's super silly. It's super silly now to keep calling yourselves the Big Ten. I get the brand and all the stuff, but the logo, you don't even use 10 in the logo no more. You can just go. You ain't even got to change the logo. B1G. That's all you need. That's all. You ain't got to change the logo. You ain't got to change nothing. Just go the Big Conference. Boom. Problem solved. So, unless something else happens on the realignment front, when folks switching conferences, next time out the box, we're going to try and get to the Ohio State Indiana game, try and get into the Kyle McCord, Devin Brown discussion, even though I don't think there is one. We're gonna get into all that. Our running backs are looking good, our receivers looking good, so our defense. Do I want to talk recruiting? I don't know if I want to talk recruiting, because recruiting don't make it just it's a hit and miss. And every time we miss, it's like at the end of the world. We just missed out on the strong safety. We missed out on Dylan Stewart, and people Ohio State struggling. Folks, we got the number 2 class at this point, but we struggling. But anyway, I ain't getting into all that, because the recruiting don't make nothing, commitments don't make nothing until they actually sign. But we can talk about the other stuff and get into some other stuff. Just folks need to stop switching conferences. Give a brother a chance to talk about some other stuff. But other than that, thank you guys for taking the time out to peek this. If you're liking it, please hit that like button, sign up for all the notifications and all that good stuff. And if you really enjoy Buckeye content, please subscribe. Get Buckeye talk from a different point of view. Get it from the fans' point of view, and just help a brother grow this thing out. So again, thank you. Like. And until next time, OHIO, go Bucks.